Have you ever asked someone their name and then immediately forgot their name right after? I know this has happened to me, and this happens because we're thinking about what we're going to say rather than listening to what the other person is saying. But a great conversation is like ping pong. It's like back and forth, right? You have to listen to what they're saying. You have to adjust to where they hit the ball, to what they're saying, right? So you adjust, you have to adapt. But a lot of people, they treat conversations either like an interview where they're just asking a bunch of questions, or a monologue where they're like constantly just talking about themselves. But you need to be able to adapt to what the person is saying, and that's where listening comes in. So don't think too much about what you're going to say. Give yourself a sec to like digest what the other person is saying and then respond accordingly. So like if you want to have meaningful conversations, you have to just actually pay attention to what they're saying. Don't constantly rehearse it in your head and think about what they're saying. Then it won't come across as like a genuine conversation. Like people will really appreciate if you're actively listening to them. And the way to actively listen, one way, is using reflections. So a reflection is pretty much just summarizing what the other person said to you in like one sentence. So if I said like, "Oh, like did you grow up in Austin?" I'm in Austin, Texas right now. I'm visiting, right? I'm like, "Oh, did you like grow up in Austin?" They're like, "Oh, yeah, actually I grew up in Austin, and then I moved to Dallas, and then I came back to Austin because Austin's my favorite city, and it's just like such a beautiful place. I love like the buildings and the springs, and there's so much nature around. It's really just a cool spot." Then I could say something like, let's assume you said that to me. Then I could say something like, "Oh wow, it seems like Austin's an important city to you." Then just like that, even though I'm pretty much just saying what you already said right back to you and summarizing it in one sentence, now the other person may open up and be like, "Yeah, you know what? Austin is really an important city to me. Like I keep coming back here, right? I grew up here, I left, and I was like, I have to make it back to Austin. Like the weather, the springs, the nature, it's just like so amazing. Whatever." So basically the other person now is opening up. So what this does, it does two things. So reflection, the two things it does, it one allows the other person to continue talking about the subject, and then two, it shows that you're listening, right? Because if you're able to summarize what they say in one sentence, that means you're actually listening, and then you're kind of like diluting it to something that's digestible. That's one sentence. That's easy to repeat to them. And if you get good at this skill, you'll have really good conversations because people will open up to you. They'll start talking about so many things in their life. Like I mentioned this in my other video, but I was in an Uber in Austin, and I was talking to him, and he pretty much told me his like life story, and he told me he won $400,000 in a game of poker. Like he worked for Dell for a while, and then he won like $400,000. It was like a crazy story, and I learned all this because I just like asked him questions, and I wasn't trying to think of what I was gonna say. I was just like genuinely curious in what he had to say. And also, I was thinking, like, why is he driving for Uber if he made $400,000? Maybe he was lying, maybe he wasn't. I think he was telling the truth. He was like an older man, and he said he was doing this for fun and to pay for his granddaughter's wedding. I was like, how expensive is this wedding? But anyway, it was like a good conversation, and it only really happened because I was like paying attention and asking questions based on what he said rather than constantly thinking about what I'm gonna say. So it's like you kind of have to give up the fear of judgment a little bit. But a lot of times the reason we're trying to like think of something in our mind before listening to what the other person is saying is because we want to come across as some way. And I think that if you really have this idea that like, oh, I'm just going to be myself, I'm just going to be curious, ask good questions, and if they like me, that's cool. If they don't, whatever, then I think you actually become more likable. Like the less you worry about being likable, the more likable you get. The more you just become more likable, because if you're genuinely just trying to get to know someone, they can kind of sense that. But if you're like, "Oh, I have to memorize all of these things so that it makes me look good," then they can kind of sense that as well. But if you just get to know someone, ask them good questions, get them to talk about themselves, they'll like you way more. And you're not doing this in like a manipulative way. You would do this just to learn about the other person, like have nice conversations and like get to know them, and then they can help you in some other way if they want to, or get to know you. So it's just kind of like the basics of having a nice conversation is listening to what the other person is saying. But if you use those reflections and you don't think too much about what you're going to say, and you actually like prioritize learning something instead of looking good in the conversation, then I think your conversations will improve drastically. One actionable step that you could do today is you could call up a friend and then practice using these reflections. Practice like repeating back to them what they just said, and see if your conversation improves a bit. And listen, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy for you to get used to saying reflections and not thinking about what you're going to say in your head. It'll take some time and effort. But even though it won't necessarily be easy, It will be worth it. Life's not easy, but it's worth it. Take care.